Good evening. I would like to call this meeting of the Municipal Council to order at 6 o'clock. Please join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are suspending the rules tonight so we can take the public hearings out of order as we have guests. And then also, I've also already called for meetings for Thursday night for everyone. So when we do committee reports, we won't have to go around the horseshoe other than those who have reports, which I believe are the flank. So after that, we'll be all set. All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the records of June 4th, 18th, and 25th of 2024, rather.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Madam Clerk, would you please read the notice of the first public hearing, please?
Certainly. July 16, 2024. Public hearing to lay out Bolcom Lane as a public way, length of 641.56 feet from station 0+00 to station 6+41.56 and accept said way and any related drainage, water or sewer facilities or easements. All is shown on a plan and profile entitled Street Acceptance Plans for Viridian Meadows Phase 1 Open Space Residential Development. Dated March 2024, prepared by Kurt A. Nunes, PLS, and Thomas M. Cunningham, RPE, of Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants Incorporated, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Mr. President, members of the council, my name is Ed Casey. I'm a lawyer with an office at Coogan Smith at 144 Bank Street, and I represent the developer of Viridian Development, which assembled parcels of land, proceeded to obtain planning board approval, and then constructed the project in 2 phases. All of the work has been done. DPW has approved the work. The planning board has agreed that the work was done in accordance with the approved plans. And the purpose of this, of 3 public hearings, I think, in sequentially, is for you to consider accepting the layout of Bolcom as a public way. Okay. And I can go into more detail, or if that is sufficient, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Sure. Do we have any questions for Mr. Casey? Okay. Ms. Casey, thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Sawyer, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I declare that public hearing closed. Madam Clerk, would you please go on to a reading of the second public hearing?
Second public hearing to lay out Bolcom Lane as a public way, length of 537.84 feet from station 10+88.40, station 6+41.56 in phase 1 plans to station 16+26.24, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, sewer facilities or easements. All is shown on a plan and profile entitled Street Acceptance Plans for Viridian Meadows Phase 2 Conventional Subdivision. Dated March 2024, prepared by Kurt A. Nunes, PLS, and Thomas M. Cunningham, RPE, of Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants Incorporated, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Mr. President, members of the council, Ed Casey again at 144 Bank Street. And everything that I said a moment ago I would repeat for you, but I ask that you consider approving this and accepting it as a public way.
Thank you. Does the council have any clarifying questions for Mr. Casey?
I do actually.
Councilor Sawyer.
So these 2 are different sections of Bolcom Lane. Is that how that works?
Yeah, I should have explained that. The subdivision was constructed in 2 phases, so that there is a Bolcom Lane that is located in the first phase, and then it was extended in the second phase, but it is all one roadway. So if you were to drive into the subdivision, you would not notice any difference between the first phase and the second phase.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I actually did have another question. I think one previous meetings we had voted about open space, and it was the same company, Viridian, and I didn't know if this had anything to do with the ways that we're approving now, or if it's something totally separate.
So that's an excellent question. This was one of the examples of what is called an open space residential development.
Right.
And the planning board approved that special permit, allowing the house lots to be a little bit smaller than the minimum in a single residence D district, 20,000 square feet. So that the house lots are a little bit smaller, but required that we set aside land for open space. So in a communication that I delivered to the mayor, I asked that she forward to you for your consideration the acceptance of that open space. And I think it may even be taken up in the next week or so. So that open space, the fee interest, the ownership of that open land will be accepted by the city, but that's a distinct process from this designation of the roadways as public way.
Okay, I just wanted to see if there was anything had to do with each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Any follow-up? All right. Additional questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Casey. Do we have anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Virginia, I see Mr. Kerr has his hand raised. Do we know if he wants to speak in favor at this public hearing?
I wanted to speak against, neither for nor against, but you guys have never unmuted the chat, so I can't tell Virginia. It's always muted for me.
That's okay, Mr. Kerr. We'll get to that momentarily. Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? I'm sorry, do we have anyone to speak against? Anyone to speak neither for nor against? Mr. Kerr.
Yeah, that's going to be me. Hey, guys. So I don't want to speak about Vulcan Way tonight. I want to speak about the lawsuit Kerr v. the City of Attleboro in federal court. So your attorneys just recently...
Mr. Kerr, Mr. Kerr, if you don't have anything, Mr. Kerr, if you don't have anything to say, I can. If you have nothing to say regarding to the, may we mute Mr. Kerr, please?
You can't mute me. You cannot interrupt me. This is a constitutional violation, sir. Please
As it
stop.
relates to public hearings,
Your lawyers
anyone in
beg
the,
you to stop. The city is begging you to stop because you're just costing the taxpayers money every time you interrupt me. I'm begging you, please do not. I have been recognized to...
thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak neither for nor against? Council Sawyer, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I declare this public hearing closed. Madam Clerk, will you go on to reading of the third communication, please?
Fourth.
Fourth. No, this is
No, 'cause
third.
we didn't- do we do Dumont Way? Yeah.
Nope, this is third.
Right.
Public hearing to lay out Dumont Way as a public way, length of 453.63 feet from Station 0+00 to Station 4+53.63, and accept said way and any related drainage, water, or sewer facilities or easements, all is shown on a plan and profile entitled Street Acceptance Plans for Viridian Meadows Phase 1 Open Space Residential Development, dated March 2024, prepared by Kurt A. Nunes, PLS, and Thomas M. Cunningham, RPE of Commonwealth Engineers and Consultants Incorporated, which plan and profile have been deemed satisfactory to the Superintendent of Public Works.
Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Mr. President, members of the council, Ed Casey again.
It's been a while.
And I know that I sound like a broken record, but this is a request that you accept Dumont Way as a public way.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Casey? Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none,
I'm here. You just jumped the gun again. You know that I'm here. So I just want to continue to talk about what I was trying to talk about there, because your lawyers argue that you're not continuing to violate.
thank you. Just a reminder that public hearings are for the subject matter at hand. Committee of the whole is for any other issues you're willing to and wanting to address the council with. Is there anyone else to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Sawyer, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I declare that public hearing closed. Madam Clerk, we go on to the reading of the fourth public hearing, please.
Certainly. Public hearing to approve the following loan order. Ordered that $500,000 is appropriated for the permitting, bidding, subconsultant, engineering, and testing associated with the West Street pilot study, located at 1296 West Street, Attleboro, Massachusetts, collectively the project, including the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow $500,000 under Chapter 29C of the General Laws and/or Section 77 of Chapter 44 of the General Laws, or any other enabling authority, that the mayor is authorized to take any other action necessary or convenient to carry out this project.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor?
Hi, Courtney Allen, Superintendent of Water. What you have in front of you is a loan order for pilot studying for the West Street plant. I will give some background on the reasoning for the pilot study. Some of it you're a little bit more familiar with, some of it you're not, so I'll start with the manganese, which is probably a little bit more unusual. Manganese is a naturally occurring element. It occurs in groundwater and soils and surface waters in the area, especially in the Northeast. It's not a regulated compound as of yet by EPA or Mass DEP. However, EPA sets health advisories for manganese. There is a lifetime health advisory, and again, we've gotten into lifetime regulations before. Lifetime is 2 liters a day of drinking the water for 70 years of your life, where it would become an issue. So the lifetime health advisory from EPA is 0.3 parts per million for the general population. There's a 10-day 1 part per million health advisory for the general population, and then there's a 10-day 0.3 parts per million for infants less than a year. EPA also sets a secondary standard of 0.05 parts per million. This is a tiny, tiny little amount. It's not health-related or anything like that. It's for aesthetics. Over that 0.05 parts per million, you can start to get rusty-looking water, or it might have a purple tinge. We have, I spoke about this about a year ago when I was down here talking about the ozone system. We have historically very high levels of manganese in Orris Pond. Much of the year we treat it with the ozone system. When we get, actually every year just about, we get seasonal manganese spikes in Orris Pond. And we've seen these spikes go as high as 18 milligrams per liter. Our ozone system will not remove that. The proposed ozone system will not remove that, and basically any ozone system in existence will not remove that high. So usually what we do, we use Orris Pond right into the spring, and when this manganese spike hits and we can't treat it anymore, we start running ozone, and then we switch over to Manchester Reservoir, which historically has not had manganese, essentially zero. We don't normally see the manganese in Manchester. We saw a spike up to 0.6 parts per million last summer in the finished water. And again, those limits, 0.3, 1, and 0.3. And we were seeing 0.6. Best guess for why this happened, we sampled in July after we were getting severe, severe rainstorms in June and July. The day before we sampled, we saw 4 inches in just over a couple hours. So Manchester, the thought is, was getting runoff that we don't normally see. And as we're seeing these rainstorms get worse and worse, that's becoming more likely. So the reasons to pilot test for manganese, again, the high levels of manganese, it hasn't happened historically, but once it happens once, it's going to happen again. There's a couple other reasons. Again, we operate off of Orris Pond as much of the year as we can. This is because, I've talked about this before, Manchester refills solely from us being able to pump up there. Once we're using it, we cannot store anymore. Orr's Pond and the rest of the reservoir system recovers through drainage and runoff and rainfall. So if it rains, Orr's recovers, Manchester does not. So you're looking at, once we're on Manchester, you're using one reservoir as opposed to 4 that normally feed the plant. So we would have more resiliency the more of the year we can use Orr's Pond with the manganese in there and be able to treat it and get it out. The other thing that we're seeing in Orr's Pond and Manchester, and pretty much across the watershed in very small amounts, is PFAS, which everybody is familiar with. We are meeting current regulations for PFAS at West Street. The reason PFAS is a concern and it wasn't under the Massachusetts regs, the Massachusetts regs, again, 6 compounds, total of 20 parts per trillion over a rolling quarterly average. We're well below that at the West Street plant. EPA announced in early April that they are releasing new PFAS regs. Their limits are much lower. There's a few ways they're limiting. There's 3 compounds that they're limiting at a rolling annual average of 10 parts per trillion. We can meet that with flying colors. There is a hazard index, which takes 4 separate ratios for 4 separate PFAS compounds, adds them together, and we have to end up with a ratio of less than 1. We're also meeting that with flying colors. There are 2 that are a concern. The first is PFOS, and the second is PFOA. EPA is regulating both of these compounds at 4 parts per trillion as a rolling annual average. That's much, much lower than what we're regulated now. And what we're seeing is the Orr's Pond finished water from the West Street plant is borderline on making compliance with these first 2 compounds, this PFOS and the PFOA. If you do your research and you look into the EPA calculations for the rolling annual average, they take your 4 samples for a year, add them together, divide them by 4. EPA is allowing any result less than 4 to be calculated as 0. DEP has indicated that they will not. So as soon as we detect, DEP is going to make us calculate it. What we're seeing for levels at Orr's Pond, finished water, our average for PFOS since the beginning of sampling is 3.34 parts per trillion, which is a little over half part per trillion below this 4. When you're talking a part per trillion, you're talking less than a drop in an Olympic swimming pool. You're talking 1 second over about 32,000 years. It's that tiny, tiny amount, and we're that close. The average for PFOA is 2.7. Again, it's a little better, but it's still awful close. The highest we've seen for PFOS and PFOA from the West Street plant are 5.76 and 4.39. So both of these are higher than the current limit. And, you know, it's getting to be a concern. We're passing right now. I can't stand here and promise that we will be passing a year from now. So the timeline to meet this reg, our sampling needs to be completed by 2027. We'll actually be done this year. We've been sampling since 2020, and we're sampling an EPA program right now for EPA, which is for PFAS 29. So we're already getting our sampling done, and we'll be done by around October. Starting in 2027, we will have to put out public notice for detects of any of the compounds that I mentioned. The EPA is going to be regulating. Good news is we actually already do this every year in the CCR. The big item that's the concern is we have to be in compliance with this reg by calendar 2029. So again, we are right now, but I can't promise we'll stay there. The numbers are awful close. I sat with the financial team this spring to draft the request for the loan order. And the discussion was, should we wait? We are part of a class action suit for 3M and for DuPont. There will be funding coming in for those that is intended to cover this. We do not have a timeline for when we will receive that funding. So there is potential the loan order may be approved and never used should that funding start coming in. I think that's it.
Okay. Before I take questions, Courtney, thank you for coming down. I said to you earlier, always great to have you come down. You're always here for these, so I know the council appreciates it. So it's good news to hear that we're planning ahead. 2029 sounds like it's a few years away, but you sneeze and it'll be here. The question is, this seems like another unfunded mandate. We're doing what we need to keep up with things. Is there any other funding, state or federal, that we could be looking at aside from the class action suit? Because it seems every time that we figure out the answers, they're changing the questions. You know, that goal line keeps moving. So if there's any support from state or federal that you know of.
There could be. There is the SRF funding, like we applied for Wading River. The likelihood of us receiving anything like that right now with not failing the reg yet is pretty low, because there are other communities that still haven't received funding that are out of compliance. There is the potential for another class action for another PFAS manufacturer that we received information on last week, and it's been forwarded to the solicitor to look at. The federal government has put out, and I'm sorry if I don't have this right off the top of my head accurately, but I want to say it's about $11 billion in funding, which sounds like a lot, except again, you know, you think Wading River's costing us alone, one department, $35 million of it.
Right.
There's 66,000 roughly public water systems in the country. They're expecting somewhere between 7 and 10% are going to fail the new regs.
Okay.
So there's going to be a lot of people fighting over the money.
So for those watching at home, is our drinking water safe?
Yes.
So I think that's really important to take away. I think that's the biggest takeaway, and I think that we've done a lot of work with some of these loans. What I liked is hearing you say that we might not even need this loan. So can you just expound upon what exactly that means? Like, we don't get the money as soon as it's approved?
Right. Basically, like I said, we're part of the class action suit. I don't know if I can publicly give a number on what we're going to receive yet. It will cover this. It will certainly cover, we can use it for anything PFAS related. It could potentially be used for resin changeovers at the other plant, loan payments. It could be used for design engineering, anything PFAS related. But again, the thought on coming down for the loan order was to get started. This regulation fell, and all of a sudden you have 66,000 systems potentially looking for the same engineers, the same equipment, the same, pilot equipment and contractors. So we wanted to be ahead of the ball.
And my last question, your last statement just touched on it. Is it a fair assessment to say that we're not just keeping up, that we're actually staying in certain areas a step ahead of things?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Sawyer.
So I heard you saying that this pilot study on West Street was for manganese, but then you mentioned just now that PFAS would help with the class action suit, would pay for the money, but this loan order is for manganese, is that correct?
It may potentially pay for the manganese part of it. We're running into this too with the SRF funding. When you treat for PFAS, there's a couple ways they can do it. They can do membrane filtration. They can do activated carbon, or they can do a resin, which is what we're going to be doing at Wading River. The way that the PFAS money can actually fund the manganese is basically when you're doing either the membrane, the resin, or the carbon, the PFAS removal, it is the absolute end of filtration for the plant. And you want all your organics out, all your manganese, anything that can possibly make that water as pristine as you can before it actually gets to the PFAS treatment part. So we found, and this was direct from DEP, again, I'll bring up Wading River. We have a $35 million plant going in, and it is eligible for anything related to PFAS, the whole thing, even though we're treating organics and manganese, because you need to remove those to effectively treat the PFAS, and that is direct from the folks that handle the loans at DEP.
Council Fowler and Vice President Dolan.
Can you explain to me this lawsuit, has it been resolved? Is there a consent decree? Is it open? Is there?
Just, if I may, I don't know that that's appropriate or germane necessarily to this, but I don't know that we should be talking necessarily in depth about any pending litigation. I think Superintendent Allen essentially said as much. We just have to be careful with this one, Counselor.
There's a lawsuit,
Correct.
Yes.
and that's all we can
It's a
know?
class action suit. And until we have more detail on it, we are not in a position to be discussing it.
I think that answers my question.
Thank you, Counselor. Vice President Dolan.
Thank you. So I realize that this is regarding the loan order, and I do see in the backup documents that it does say the pilot study for PFAS and manganese removal. So that's good. And President Delacio took a lot of what I had to say, but I appreciate all your hard work in getting ahead of this, because we all know how important water is. So I appreciate that. And when you saw those samplings that were over the 4.0 on the PFOS and PFOA, was that all 4 samplings that were over? Was it, or did like 1 or 2 skew the average, or?
It's kind of up and down. The average, what did I tell you? One of them was about 3.5 and the other one's 2.7.
Right, but then you said that there was a sampling that was like 5 point something, and
That is averaged in there too.
Okay.
The averages they're not even, those numbers provided aren't like an annual. That's since the beginning of time, so.
Okay, all
Of
right.
sampling. So there's probably, for West Street, we've been sampling a few years, there's probably 15 to 20 samples averaged in there.
Okay. And thank you again for all your hard work over there. Thank you.
Additional questions? Mr. Waterman.
And I'm not totally positive this applies, but I think it does. Are we doing anything regarding the possible sources of the PFAS that we're beginning to see right now?
We are, and this is public record, upstream from the Wading River plant. We have a couple things. I'd mentioned there's the potential that there's going to be another class action suit opening up for a PFAS manufacturer. That particular manufacturer was directly upstream from Miramichi, which feeds Wading River. So there's that. There's also a landfill upstream from Miramichi that when we initially started seeing the numbers at Wading River that we did, we sat with DEP and you come up with an action plan on what you're going to do with your plant to handle it. And part of that conversation with DEP at the time was they can't imagine where it's coming from, and we had a guess that it was that landfill. They're now sampling the landfill, and they have been sampling for several months, and the surface water at the landfill, I mean, we're seeing dozens of times higher than we're actually seeing at the plant. So it is definitely a potential source. What the state's going to do about it, I'm not 100% sure. I know we were first and landfills are next. I don't know that we can recover any money from it, but there's potential that they can make them start treating or, recycling water through the landfill, so it at least stops coming in the numbers that it is.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I just have another question. You were talking about what happens if we go over the levels that the state puts out there? What happens? What does the city have to do? What does the state tell us we have to do?
If we go over the levels, we actually did run into this at Wading River during the initial sampling, and then when we had to restart the plant during the drought in '22, We had to restart the plant out of compliance with the Massachusetts regs. We were going to run out of water. There's a couple things you can do. We shut down Wading River and started providing drinking water from West Street. With West Street, that's a little bit rougher. It's our larger plant. We can't shut it down. We can't live without it. We would have to provide another source of water. Even with Wading River online, that's not really feasible to ask someone that lives in South Attleboro to drive all the way to Mansfield to fill jugs. I mean, it's probably, by the time the jug's filled, an hour-and-a-half trip. There's the Pawtucket plant would be coming online. We could give drinking water there, and the other option is actually to provide bottled water to anyone that requests it, which at that point gets a lot more expensive than actually doing the piloting and being ready. It adds up really, really quick for a population of about 47,000.
Thank you. Additional questions? Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Vice President Dolan, any reason to keep this public hearing open?
No.
Thank you. I declare this public hearing closed. And Madam Clerk, will you please go on to the reading of the fifth and final public hearing of the evening?
Certainly. Public hearing to amend Section 10-5.10 of the city ordinances, handicapped and veterans parking spaces as follows. Change Bank Street easterly side from 125 feet northerly of Park Street to 150 feet northerly of Park Street to Bank Street easterly side from 196 feet northerly of Park Street to 218 feet northerly of Park Street.
Thank you. Do we have anyone to speak in favor? Do we have anyone to speak against? Do we have anyone to speak neither for nor against? Seeing none, Councilor Tavares, do you see any reason to keep this public hearing open?
I do not.
Thank you. I declare that public hearing closed. We'll now entertain a motion to go into committee of the whole.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are now into committee of the whole. If anyone wishes to address the city council. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to arise from committee of the whole.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are now risen from committee of the whole. We will now go into a reading of the mayor's communication. Madam Clerk.
July 16, 2024, dear municipal councilors, I respectfully submit a communication from APS Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding a 48-month lease with Conica Minolta for 8 copiers to be deployed throughout the Attleboro School District. In accordance to Section 5-8 Lease Purchase Agreement of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve a 48-month lease agreement with Conica Minolta, supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
For your information, I am pleased to inform you that Dan Sarala is the city's new health agent, having been recommended for the position by Health Officer Dr. Christopher Quinn. Before beginning his employment with the City of Attleboro on July 1st, Dan most recently worked as the Director of Public Health for the town of Milford and previously worked as a health agent and sanitary inspector for the City of Taunton. Please join me in welcoming Dan to the city staff.
That's an FYI, and Dan, welcome to the city.
I am pleased to inform you that I have appointed Christopher McDermott as our new Economic Development Director. Before beginning his appointment with the City of Attleboro on July 15th, Chris worked as the Economic Development Director in Mansfield and was also previously employed as the Economic Development Manager for the Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. Chris has a master's degree in Economic and Social Development of Regions from UMass Lowell and a bachelor's degree in International Economics and Political Science from Assumption College. Chris was offered the position with the City of Attleboro effective July 15, 2024, under a temporary 90-day appointment in accordance with Section 3.3B of the Attleboro Home Rule Charter. Accordingly, I respectfully ask your honorable body to confirm the appointment of Christopher McDermott as Economic Development Director, term to expire February 2026, supporting documents provided.
Thank you. Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water Courtney Allen and Superintendent Wastewater Tom Hayes regarding an agreement between the City of Attleboro and the Massachusetts Water Wastewater Agency Response Network, WARN, The Massachusetts Water Wastewater Agency Response Network was formed to assist public water and wastewater utilities with meeting these challenges. Mass Warn consists of mutual aid agreement of more than 100 public water and wastewater systems throughout the Commonwealth. This agreement allows these systems to receive and/or provide 24-hour mutual aid to other members' communities in the event of a natural or man-made disaster or other emergency. This mutual aid can consist of assistance in the form of materials, equipment, or personnel when needed. Therefore, in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 4A, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the agreement between the City of Attleboro and the Massachusetts Water Wastewater Agency Response Network, WARN, supporting documents provided.
Public Works Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Fire Chief Scott T. LaChance regarding the receipt of the fiscal 2024 Student Awareness of Fire Education SAFE Grant and the fiscal year 2024 Senior SAFE Grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the amount of $9,800. The mission of the SAFE program is to provide fire and life safety education within the community with an emphasis on educating children and seniors about other fire and other related dangers. There is no matching requirement for this grant. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending of such funds and any future grant amendments by the Attleboro Fire Department, supporting documents provided.
Public Safety and Emergency Management, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Recreation Christy Clausen regarding the conditional award of the Community Development Block Grant to cover the salary costs for the youth advocates at the after-school youth program in the amount of $13,200. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the expenditure during fiscal year 2025 of this community development block grant and also approve any grant amendments, supporting documents provided.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Community Engagement Manager Kaylin Locklear regarding the award of $8,000 through Mass Development's TDI Local Fund Program to support the city's Winter Night Festival. No match is required under this grant program. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your body to approve the expenditure of these funds and also approve any future grant amendments, supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Community Engagement Manager Kaylin Locklear regarding the award of $5,000 through Mass Development's TDI Local Fund Program to organize and execute a new winter holiday event, Holiday Stroll in our downtown. No match is required under this grant program. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body to approve the expenditure of these funds and also approve any future grant amendments, supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
I am pleased to inform you that the city has received a letter of donation from Sisters at Heart, a local nonprofit whose mission is to improve the lives of those affected by heart disease and stroke by donating publicly accessible automated external defibrillators, AEDs, to Massachusetts communities. This donation includes 8 AEDs and 8 weatherproof heated and insulated cabinets. These AEDs will be installed at Ponson Hewitt Field, Capron Park Zoo, Haywood Field, Lees Pond Playground, Horton Field, Highland Park, Finberg Field, and the Tilda B. Stone Playground. The total value of this donation is $29,078. In exchange for this donation, the city will agree to arrange for payment of the electrical permits and installation costs. The cost of permits and installation is expected to be approximately $10,000. And I'm working with the Recreation Department Director, Christy Clausen, to potentially secure donations to offset these costs. Should donations not satisfy the entire cost of installation, the difference will be drawn from the appropriate available funds. Accordingly, I respectfully ask your honorable body to accept this generous donation from Sisters at Heart and grant me authorization to sign the associated partnership agreement. supporting documents attached.
City property and claims, please.
I am pleased to inform you that I have appointed Stacia Chavis as our new Community Development Director. Before beginning her employment with the City of Attleboro on July 16th, Stacia worked as the Federal Financial Compliance Manager for the Massachusetts Technology Collaborative and previously worked in the Housing Development Division for the City of Worcester. Stacia has a bachelor's degree in political science from Anna Maria College. Stacia was offered the position with the City of Attleboro effective July 16th, 2024, under a temporary 90-day appointment in accordance with Section 3.3B of the Home Rule Charter. Accordingly, I respectfully ask your honorable body to confirm the appointment of Stacia Chavis as Community Development Director, term to expire February 2026, supporting documents provided.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Council on Aging, Kelly Lee, regarding the receipt of a grant for the SHINE program through the Executive Office of Elder Affairs in the amount of $73,000. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending such funds and any future grant amendments supporting documents provided.
Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Attleboro Public Schools Director of Finance, Mark Furtado, regarding the following fiscal year 23 fiscal obligations that were not received in time to be processed in the normal fiscal year 23 business cycle. All the vendors are Eversource, and it's in a total amount of $663.72. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body to authorize the school department to pay these previous year's school bill totaling $663.72 as identified in Mr. Furtado's communication supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Director of Budget and Administration, Mason Lord, regarding the Bristol County Agricultural High School debt service for fiscal year 25. As you are aware, a portion of the debt service for Bristol County Agricultural High School, boy, am I having a hard time speaking tonight, which is BCAHS, is payable by sending municipalities proportionate to their enrollment at BCAHS. The amount budgeted for this expense in the fiscal year 2025 budget was $113,614, equivalent to the amount due in fiscal year 2024. The amount due for fiscal year 2025 is higher than anticipated due to an increase in the district's enrollment at BCAHS. Therefore, I hereby request your honorable body transfer $11,958.86 from account 1124100-578300 Citywide Reserve Fund for transfer to account 1301000-562200 Education Bristol AGHS Debt Assessment supporting documents provided.
Finance Committee, please.
I respectfully submit a communication from Superintendent of Water, Courtney Allen, regarding the receipt of a grant through Mass DEP in the amount of $44,665 for cyber security upgrades for the Water Department's SCADA system. This grant includes reimbursement up to the total cost of the project. In accordance with Chapter 1, Section 12 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, I hereby request your honorable body approve expending such funds and any future grant amendments supporting documents provided.
Public Works, please.
Sincerely, Kathleen DeSimone, Mayor.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, may we go on to reading of your communication?
I'd be more than happy to.
Thank you.
Clerk's communication, July 16th, 2024. We have received a new Class 2 auto dealership license request from Attleboro Auto Clinic LLC, 42 County Street.
That'll go to License Committee, please. And Councilor LaVoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on August 20th?
I would. Second.
Thank you. Motion is in order. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received a keeping a stand in a public place request from Tracy Sinelli, 11 French Palm Road, Attleboro, for one food table at 11 Riverbank Road on October 6, 2024, from 1 to 5 p.m.
License Committee, please. And Councilor LaVoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on 8/20?
I would.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received a keeping a stand in a public place request from Tracy Sinelli, 11 French Farm Road, Skyrock Brewery, for a beer cart at 11 Riverbank Road on October 6, 2024, from 1 to 5, and to waive Section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine on city property.
License Committee, please. And Councilor LaVoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on August 20th?
Certainly.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received an application to waive section 11-15.1 to serve alcoholic beverages or wine on city property from the Friends of Capron Park Zoo for their fundraising event, Night at the Zoo, to be held on September 28, 2024.
Our License Committee and Council LaVoy, would you like to call for a public hearing on 8/20? I would.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received a rezoning petition from San Rose Realty LLP by Ronald Cardy to rezone Assessors Plat Number 18, lots 500S, 500U, and 500V from Planned Highway Business to General Residence A.
Zoning and Land Use and Councilor Sawyer, would you like to call for a public hearing on September 17th?
Yes.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
We have received a letter from William McDonough, Inspector of Buildings, requesting the reappointment of Brian Germain as Inspector of Plumbing and Inspector of Gas Piping and Gas App for a term of 3 years, term to expire 2027.
Personnel, Veterans, Human Services, please.
We've received a letter from Mike Parker asking to save the Highland Clubhouse and fund the senior center.
Copy to all councilors, please.
And that concludes my communication.
Thank you. We will now go into committee reports, and we will only be recognizing those with business this evening, which would be, we'll start with Councilor Sawyer. We're not in the public comment portion. No, that just came down in the new business, and that'll be discussed at a public hearing
On the 20th.
on the 20th of August. August 20th. Yep, thank you.
Do you take comments about that or not?
We will at the public hearing. It'll be in the Sun Chronicle in the upcoming days. Don't be sorry. That's what we're here for. Thank you. Okay. Councilor Sawyer.
Thank you, President Delicio, reporting for Zoning and Land Use Committee. From the docket of June 25th, 2024, I move to accept parcel B containing 250,193 square feet of real estate for open space purposes in perpetuity and placed under the stewardship of the Conservation Commission, fulfilling the Conservation Commission's order of conditions number 097-1184 dated July 13th, 2011, as well as condition number 14 contained in the Planning Board Certificate of Vote dated June 23rd, 2011. Specifically, that pursuant to the provisions of 17-10.5 Open Space Residential Development, Viridian Development LLC shall formally offer parcel B containing 259,193 square feet of open space as shown on sheet 5 of 16 to Municipal Council as a donation to the Conservation Commission prior to a final release of funds from the performance guarantee or lots from covenant whichever applies by the planning board.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
No, we did look at this and vote it out of committee. It basically is just that open space that is being given to the Conservation Commission.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote beginning with Councilor Foa.
Ms. Foa?
Aye.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion passes.
And that is all the business for the Zoning and Land Use Committee, and I call for a committee meeting at the next appropriate time.
Thank you, Councilor Sawyer. Councilor Waterman.
Yes. I would move from the docket of March 5th, 2024, to strike the following. Referred the following request to the Traffic Study Commission for study and recommendation. Create a pedestrian crosswalk at 2 locations, the intersection of Commerce Way and Tiffany Street, and at approximately 1400 Commerce Way to assist residents of the complex across heavily trafficked thoroughfares.
Second.
Thank you. Motion's in order. Any comments?
Well, we've already talked about, but to repeat, highly used areas, not a particularly safe area to put a crosswalk up by itself, and certainly there's no sidewalk along in front of 1400 Commerce, which is usually there is a sidewalk where we put a crosswalk, and the Traffic Study Commission was not supportive of this.
Thank you. Additional questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, this will be a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And that's all the business we had this evening. We'll meet at the next appropriate time.
Thank you. Councilor Tavares.
Thank you, President Delicio. From the docket of June 4th, 2024, I move to approve the amendment to Section 1-8.1 of the revised ordinances of the City of Attleboro, which contains outdated pricing and information. The proposed amendment is as follows. Delete in its entirety 1-8.1 list of persons book, replace with...
Councilor, you may waive the reading if you wish to.
Second.
Okay. Motion is in order. Any comments?
So just to reiterate, because it's been a few weeks, I spoke with Sharon in the elections office a few weeks ago. And just to keep up with our costs regarding the third-party supplier that prints these books, rationale being that we don't want to lose money. It's not a money-making item. But the last time this was amended back in 1999, the price was increased, but that was the last time. So there's no charge for emailed records from the elections office, but this is just on printed copies. So we're just essentially passing on the printing costs and the cost of the storage drive itself. So.
Additional questions, comments, concerns? Councilor Falwell.
I have a friendly amendment, which I raised in committee, that in addition to saying on the new ordinance thumb drive, we say on a thumb drive, or as it is also known, a USB flash drive.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Second.
Yeah, it's a friendly amendment, so it doesn't need a... So thumb drive / USB. Councilor, are you all right with that, as the chair?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll accept that. Additional questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call vote, beginning with Councilor Tavares.
Mr. Tavares?
Yes.
Mr. Waterman?
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Angelo?
Yes.
Vice President Dolan?
Yes.
Ms. Reynolds?
Yes.
Mr. Lavoy?
Yes.
Ms. Foa?
Yes.
President Delicio?
Yes.
9 yeas, 0 nays.
Thank you, motion passes.
From the docket of October 17, 2023, I move to strike the following to look at changes to 7-8.2 of the city ordinance, requesting a review and overhaul of the abatement process for non-municipal users of the city's rubbish recycle program.
Second.
Thank you, motion is in order. Any comments?
So again, just to take us back to a few weeks ago, committee meeting discussion. So Councilor Reynolds and I met with the city auditor and solid waste manager a couple months back to discuss the way the trash program works now and the abatement process and the rationale behind all of that. And it was really informative. And there's a lot of moving pieces, I think, that at least we were not aware of. So at this time, this piece of business is, or it's being proposed that this piece of business be struck. And that doesn't mean that we can't review this in the future, but at least right now, I don't think it makes sense to move forward with some of the changes that that were originally contemplated.
Very good. Councilor Reynolds.
I just have an additional comment saying that they are working on it right now to address some of the concerns that we had, working within the state, because the state has some their hand in it. And so therefore, we can't just willy-nilly change what we want to change, even if we don't think it's agreeable to the people in the city. But it is being worked on, and I would think that in another month or two, come up to September, we'll have some answers from the state, hopefully.
Additional questions or comments? Councilor Tavares, Councilor Holmes, who's not here, and Councilor Reynolds, kudos. A lot of hard work went into this, and I appreciate the hard work you all put into this, working with appropriate stakeholders to ensure you got the information, so well done. That being said, this will require a voice vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. There is no old business, there is no new business, but prior to adjourning Thursday night, we're meeting again. We have the tree ordinance public hearing, so we'll call the meeting to order at 6. We will do the public hearing, we'll recess for committee, we'll come back to the full council. It's important that if there's something that you're not sure about, that between today and Thursday, you reach out to the department head, find out if it's pertinent that it gets out Thursday night. I'll try to help you with that as well. But other than that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned at 6:54.